this is Anastasia Gors here from PilatesBridge.com, and today I'm here with Mike Williams from Digitally Fit, and we're going to talk a little bit about digital marketing for fitness studios. So whether it's like a boutique studio or you have a Pilates studio or yoga studio or anything like that, we're going to really focus on how you can use digital advertising to grow your business, especially in this day and time when it's kind of hard to get new clients into your studio. So I'm going to let Mike introduce himself a little bit. He has an extensive experience both managing a fitness facility, running his own business, and also helping fitness studio owners really grow their business online through online advertising. So Mike, let us know who you are and what you do.
So I guess around 7 years ago, we opened a studio here. It was my wife's idea. We got into it and quickly got in over our head. It was a lot harder. We have another business. She has, we own her hair salon, same plaza. And running the gym was significantly harder than running the hair salon. I started running into obstacles I had never encountered before. It was just harder to get clients through the door. Most of her clients over there, she's had them for 20 plus years. Like once she gets a client, she never loses them. It's not the same way in the fitness world. So there's a constant cycle going there. And I was amazed at the amount of tech and the things that I had to learn as a gym owner. And it seemed to be, that was one of the biggest roadblocks for a lot of people. That was where a lot of people struggled. And I just threw my hands up, and I clearly remember thinking like, why the hell isn't there somebody that helps gyms do all this stuff? But why does a gym owner need to know how to build a website, do all these different things? That's not what we're typically good at. Then, I had some bad experiences, and along the way, I learned how to, in essence, do my own marketing. And a number of friends kept reaching out and asking me to help them do theirs, other fitness business owners. And that's how I ever got started with Digitally Fit, was just had friends in the business that asked me to help them do the same thing for them that I did for me.
Okay, cool. Well, something that I hear a lot from a lot of studios, especially in Pilates industry, it might be different from others fitness modalities, is that a lot of studio owners, they get all their clients from referrals and word of mouth. They say, oh, I tried advertising, wasted a ton of money, never got anything. That's it. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, basically not doing anything, and people will refer and they will come. So did you experience any of that? Do you think that, what do you think they're doing wrong that they're not getting any results?
It's the number one thing that I think people do wrong when it comes to their advertising is not retargeting. So there's all these studies out there that we know that it used to take between 7 and 12 touch points for somebody to warm up to the idea of doing business with you. And we're so inundated. So we're overly connected, but we're disconnected at the same time. And there's so much noise going on that it takes more than that to get through it. And so all the different interruptions that people have when they first see your business, but they're likely not seeing your business or learning about they get started with you for the first time. They're not making that decision right then. There's so many interruptions that could get in the way. If you don't retarget, you don't give them the chance to go, oh yeah, I really wanted to do that. Or if they don't remember the name of your studio, that happens all the time, and they end up going somewhere else. That's really, really common. But that's the biggest difference between small businesses and really big brands. Is for a big brand, if you go online and if you look up patio furniture at Home Depot, I can assure you, you will be seeing patio furniture from Home Depot in your Facebook and your Instagram feed for quite a while. That's the one thing that we tend to not do. It's probably the most important strategy. I think it's the first thing that a small business should put in place, because it can be less expensive if you're only doing the front end, which is what that's what all I was doing in the beginning. It's all I knew how to do. But that's in essence, you're asking somebody to marry you on the first date. it tends to not go that well. And if they do say yes, you should be concerned. That's what most of us do. And that gets really expensive. And that's how people, I think, get started with their marketing and find that it didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so the same thing I've tried before, like postcard mailers, which is not digital advertising, but the first thing, it's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
And the first thing they'll tell you, I'm like, oh, you can't just do it once. You have to commit to this to the long term. Well, but for a lot of us, that's not cost effective, and it's too expensive to do in the long term. But with retargeting, the nice thing about that is the audience is so much smaller, and you're just reaching back out to the people who've ever like were interested in your, even remotely. You're just reminding them over and over and over again that you're there. But that's usually a technical know-how. It's, once it's in place, you can leave it. But that is the biggest obstacle I think that most people, especially fitness business owners, that they don't do,
Mm-hmm.
is that very specifically.
Okay. So for somebody who's completely non-tech savvy and that's the first time they heard the word retargeting when it comes to marketing, can you explain in some simple, like down to earth terms, what it is, what we're actually looking at? What is retargeting?
So retargeting allows you to put your ads or your message back in front of the people who engaged with your social media or they visited your website. So we know that 98% of your site visitors don't return, or they don't take the action that you would want them to. Well, that's the overwhelming majority of your traffic. Retargeting that's the forms of advertising that allows you to reach back out to the people that looked into you but didn't finish what they were doing.
Okay. And what platforms do you recommend for using for retargeting?
Primarily, well, Facebook, Instagram, the Google Display Network, and if someone's on YouTube, you can use that as well. That's really powerful. So YouTube's a great spot, primarily because most of their ad inventory a lot of it goes unused. Where Facebook and Instagram, they keep having there's more ads than there are spots, and so both of them, they're all a bidding system. And because of that, that's what makes YouTube so powerful, is just because you can get your message out there, you can get a lot of impressions without having to pay as much money, simply because not everybody is using that platform.
Okay. And do you find that video or just image ads tend to do better? Obviously, with YouTube, we're talking video. There's no other way. But with the other ones, do you think they need to create videos or not?
It helps. I think when they can, especially with a small business, when they can put a face to it. I don't need to put a face to Home Depot, but for a local business, it helps to put a face to it. You don't have to do it to have success. I definitely think it makes it easier. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to do daily Facebook Lives or any of that kind of stuff. But if you have somewhere in your nurture process, if you have some video, I definitely think it helps.
Okay.
But pictures still work. I mean, it still works for ads.
Okay. So would you say, like, let's say for a studio, if we're talking about retargeting campaign, what would be our conversion? What would you consider? Just contacting them, sending them straight to like, oh, sign up for a free trial or book your first appointment? What do you think works best?
The best, if somebody has a lead magnet up front, which is like a, like if it's like the 5 reasons you should do Pilates or whatever it is, but something that's of value to somebody that would check out your services, have that first, and let them warm up to that first, and then retarget that audience with your front end offer. It's really hard to, it's 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, you could go right at cold traffic and people that didn't know you and still have a pretty decent result. I think consumers are a little smarter, maybe a little more jaded. It's harder now. And so if you warm them up to something with a lead magnet or anything like that to begin with, and then retarget them with your offer, that seems to work a lot better. It's just, it's that whole know, like, and trust factor. And then the more they get to know you, the better your chances of success. And I think whether it's a patience issue or not having a really good strategy to begin with, just launching an ad because you need customers, that's a recipe for disaster. That doesn't end well. Like there needs to be like a well laid out strategy. How do you warm them up, and then what's your process to get them all the way in the door? It, if you're just going like cold traffic, just straight to an offer, it's not. It doesn't seem to be working as well as it did a few years ago.
Hmm. Yeah, obviously, if you're selling some super high ticket item and you get one sale out of whatever 100 clicks, then it might be worth it. But if you're selling a $20 class and you get 20 clicks,
Yeah,
I mean, 100 clicks, I'm sorry, like all of a sudden it's no longer much of value.
exactly. And it's a lot easier on. So if you're, and especially that with on your offer, if you're asking for a phone number, that brings the conversion rate and your number of clicks are going to come way down.
Hmm.
And so on the front end, if you're not asking for a phone number, you're just asking for like first name, email, but you're giving away something of value, you can get more people on your list. So you can grow your email list at the same time, and you can grow your retargeting audience at the same time. Um, so it gives you've got two different ways to reach them at that point.
Okay. So basically for the ads, we have like some kind of lead magnet that basically gives them something of value that's free, just kind of to summarize it for people who've never done that before. And then once they visited your website, they've been like they're in your system using either Facebook pixel or Google ads, their retargeting pixel, whatever it's called there. And then you show them your offer at that point so that we can take advantage of that. Correct?
That seems to work a lot better now than, but most people aren't. The overwhelming majority of fitness studios are not running that strategy. Most of them are going front end only, and it's just not as effective as it once was.
Yeah. So, what do you think for somebody say, okay, I'm thinking about it, that might be something I want to try. What kind of budget should they prepare to get started? I guess like what should be their monthly advertising budget, or maybe even a daily budget, whatever is easier for you for their digital advertising, and how long they should be prepared to run that budget for.
So I always recommend somebody to figure out what they can do long term. And so if you work with a large agency, a retargeting strategy that's usually kind of far down the line. They're going to get like your budget set up on the front end. I always recommend it's the first thing that somebody puts in play. And before I can determine what their budget is, I would need to look at like their analytics, like how much traffic are they getting? What do those audiences look like? That's going to determine what their budget is. A lot of times that can be as little as $3 a day.
Mm-hmm.
But from a retargeting standpoint, you'd have to have a pretty good sized audience to even need $10 a day from a retargeting standpoint. But it really depends on their audience and what they're looking at. But it tends to be less expensive, and it can be more effective. Like I know a lot with the websites that you do. One of the biggest things I'll point someone to from a resource standpoint is StoryBrand. And that's where they'll have like the top right button will also match the call to action button. And if your messaging is on point and you know what your call to action is, if there's a purpose to your website, all of this will work a lot better. And that's where, but depending on what their traffic is, I guess to answer your question, what their traffic is going to help determine their budget, but we work with them on that. But I think a lot of people are surprised how low it can be when it comes to retargeting. On the front end, if you're going for front end traffic and you don't have the back end piece set up, you're probably looking at $20 a day or more. That's expensive to try to get a result. And just understand that it's an auction and everybody's doing that strategy and it's not working and they're frustrated. Why would you do what everybody else is doing when it's not working and it's frustrated and it's expensive? Set up the back end first.
Yeah. So set that up for somebody, for example, like I see a lot of the analytics for different studios, and they might be getting, let's say, anywhere from 30 to 60 website clicks from different resources a day, not including advertising or anything like that. Do you think that would be something sufficient to run a retargeting campaign on?
You need the retargeting audience, I think, has to be above 100. You need 100 individual users in the audience for Google Display Network, and I believe it's around the same thing for Facebook before it'll start to spend.
Okay.
And so that may change the time frame, whether you're doing a 30-day audience, a 90-day, or a 180-day audience. That it may change that. I'd like it, preferably it's 30 or less.
Yeah.
Once you're like 60 days out on somebody visiting your website, if they haven't been back, you're not really relevant any longer. So ideally, you can get your 30-day audience is north of 100 individual users, and then at that point you can get some spend on it. And so I do come across it where I'll get in the background and look at somebody and they're not there yet, and they may need to do something on the front end to help drive that traffic up, just so they can build a retargeting audience, so it'll even start to spend.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like, I see that a lot, especially with businesses that just open. Well, there haven't been many that opened in like this year, but there have been some who did open. And so it's like a definite struggle just to even bring people in, because I think not many people even are looking at this point or ready to, enroll in.
That's probably one of the biggest things that we help people get set up, is that they're not tracking to begin with, but get those codes, your Google remarketing code and your Facebook pixel, get those in place before you need them, so that they're tracking the data. But if you've got to go back and you wait to install those until you need them, you may not have data to start with.
Yeah, because obviously they'll need at least a month or something if you're a low traffic site to collect anything that you can work with.
Correct.
Okay. Cool. So, Mike, like you mentioned, like all the strategies. So, do you actually set these strategies in place for studios, for businesses who want to work with you, or do you teach them? How do you help them?
I've got a couple different. If I just for retargeting, no, I don't walk them through all that. Hopefully, I'll point them to some resources, but they're going to need to clarify their brand message, and then once that's on point, then we can use the retargeting to sort of reiterate their message and help them spread their message to their audience. But I think back to like Geico with their whole, in 15 minutes you could say 15% or more. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that can't spit that back at you. That's kind of what you're trying to do with whatever your message is for your business, and that's what the retargeting can help them do. That is, I'll do one-to-one consulting with someone to try to walk them through that if they want to set that up. That's completely separate. And when I do that, it's usually like a 1 hour Zoom call a week to try to help them do that. It can be a lot of work, and it's not something, doing that for somebody, I've not found that. I've tried to do that in the past, and part of it was because I care, and having gone through that struggle and not known how to do any of this. Oh my God. Like, have you ever heard of Jimdo as a platform? I had no idea how to build a website. And it was like the first platform, and I had just been some horrific websites, but I didn't know how to do anything. And so I would reach out to just, probably how so many other people do it was, another member had a brother that knew how to build a website, supposedly. That's who did my first site. And I'm like, oh, wow, I'm supposed to pay for that? And like, that's horrible. And I grew from that. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea how to do anything. And you grow from that. And so when I see somebody going through those struggles, like, I can relate to it because I lived that, and I want to help them, but it's not, the individual person has to have the buy-in, or it doesn't work. Like, you can do all kinds of work for somebody, but it may not ultimately help them. Like, they have to clarify their brand message. They're going to understand that more than anybody else. And when they can get that on point, and StoryBrand's got some great stuff that they can go through to really help them clarify that, then I can help them take it to the next level. But if they don't have that part ingrained, the retargeting is not as helpful, even though it will still help you promote your business. But that's where I'll go through more of that stuff with the one-to-one consulting.
Okay. So you help basically for like a business, they have their, let's say like they have their message, they have their brand on point, all that. So you help them more with like the technical aspect of setting it up and organizing in a logical structure where it actually makes sense to take the customer, the lead through the funnel of, to completion.
Yeah. And so ideally they've got there's a strategy that's in place, and where they can, and that's another difference between some of your bigger brands and what a lot of fitness business owners try to do, is that on the fitness side of things, they're forever tweaking it. They're going from this challenge to that challenge, or they're always trying something new, as opposed to like, here's my strategy, and then I'm gonna start testing it, and they're just gonna test it and run a series of tests all the way down the line and continue to optimize it, and stop like abandoning one strategy and going to another strategy. But I've been running, I just changed my offer, I think for the first time in 4 years. And so I rebranded coming back out of the shutdown in COVID. And then I changed my offer. This is the first time in 4 years that I've changed. I had the same landing page, same video, same ads, and all I would do is just test it and just optimize it and make it work, just to get it working better, not completely deviate from the strategy. And like that, that's like starting all over again.
Yeah. Cool. So, for somebody, so you just touched upon like you had the same landing page for like 4 years. For somebody who wants to start their digital marketing strategy, what kind of time commitment do you think they need? Obviously, at first, there's going to be more that they need to do. But let's say once things are set up, what are they looking at? Like, is it something they need to spend a ton of time, daily, weekly, monthly?
Probably about anywhere from, once everything's in place, maybe 30 minutes to an hour a week. It doesn't have to be real time consuming.
Okay.
I probably I don't know that I spend that much on mine now. I used to spend most of my time on somebody else's ads, not mine. But I don't, but I'm testing, and then I'll tweak things here and there. And every month I'll may add something else in play. So I'm testing a different image, or I'm testing something different, but the strategy stays the same. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't change month to month. That tends to get harder, but the platforms are going to change, but the way you go about it doesn't. Your total strategy shouldn't be changing all the time. Mm-hmm. But Facebook's going to make their algorithm changes. Google's going to make their changes, all that stuff. And so you just kind of like you're testing and optimizing to like, how do their changes affect it doesn't change what you're trying to do, but it may change some of your optimization along the way.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Cool. So, so do you have any of your favorite tools that you use in digital marketing, whether it's for creating some of the content or maybe just for the actual ad management?
There's a lot of additional tools for ads management. I tend to not use those. I work primarily just out of the back end of Google, off their Google Ads, and then Facebook's Business Manager and that's where it can get expensive. There's so much additional tech that can go with it. Zapier is probably the one thing that I think most people would have in place, and that connects software A to software B. So you can automate a lot of stuff. And then there's, but I do have software that I help people use that so it's a white labeled software. But you've got ClickFunnels and all the ClickFunnels, Scipio. There's all these different things that are out there. They've kind of ripped the lid off those, and which is what I've white labeled. But there's a piece that combines all that, and so I use that. So it's digitally fit software, but it's a white labeled version. And there's tons of other places that I'm sure that are selling a similar software. But it's got all your funnel builder, your email campaigns, your text campaigns, all the automation, all your lead tracking, everything is all rolled up into one software. I probably dropped 8 to 9 pieces of software when I got that. And I've been using that for about 1.5 years now. But that being said, Zapier is probably the one thing that I'll probably never go away from, just because it connects everything that I do. But what somebody's process is, and regardless of what their budget is, there's a way to build all that stuff regardless of somebody's budget, where they can have the tools that are in place. And so that may or may not be the greatest fit for somebody. It depends what's their budget, where are they at. There's a way to achieve everything. There's a bunch of different email service providers, whether it's you got Aweber, MailChimp, Constant Contact. I use Drip. There's a bunch of them, but what matters is that you have the ability to send out newsletters.
Yeah, like MailChimp I always recommend because they started a free level.
Right.
I think it's still 2,000 subscribers. Maybe they went down to 1,000, but it's a pretty good amount for most studios when they're starting out. It's like no way that they will touch that. And then some of the extra tools there, obviously they're paid, but again, to begin with, you can get by with the free plan for quite some time to do everything that you need. So speaking about email lists, this is something that many people are like, okay, email lists are important, but it seems like nobody's really reading emails. You just get like your email clogged up with like 10,000 promotional update emails and stuff like that. Are there any tips on how to make the emails, the newsletters still work in this day and time?
They still work. So, I don't, and so I've heard it. People will say that that email's dead, but I don't know anyone. When's the last time you had a day where you didn't check your email?
Yeah.
No. So everybody's still reading it, but it's noisy. But so is Facebook. So is Instagram. If you've got good content, they're still going to read it. And so I think I've heard it said by a number of different really high-level marketers that the number one skill that you could ever have as a business owner would be copywriting. That if you can put that out there, and that any of your stuff is, if it's engaging and people want to read it, then you've always got a chance. But email is not dead. I mean, there's still plenty of people who I read their emails and they're emailing once, twice a day. And what was the other one? I came across something recently but it was to that effect. It wasn't specifically about email, but where most small business owners are concerned that we're bothering our audience enough. But the biggest, but Geico is not worried about that. All these other really big brands, they're not worried about that. And our touch points are so insignificant when compared to the larger brands that you just can't worry about it. But I think I cut my email list in half last year at some point. But it was mainly for deliverability. I ran a report, and whoever had not opened an email in the last 90 days, I just cut them off my list, and to keep the list healthier. But I don't want to get way off the beaten path about tactics that you can do to keep your list healthy from a deliverability standpoint. But email still works. It's another way that you're back in front of it, and you own your email list. Probably one of the biggest gyms in the country had their Facebook page shut down a couple of weeks ago. And I'd say and they'd had that page since Facebook started, and then to lose that, I mean, most of us would freak out. But I mean, they can take all that stuff away from us at any point in time, but your email list, you still own that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Well, something that I come across with a lot of studios, all they do, they say, okay, I have an email list. I said, send out a monthly newsletter. Mm-hmm. So I usually tell them that, well, a monthly newsletter is about, you might as well send out a yearly newsletter because most likely nobody will ever read them. So how often do you think studios, fitness businesses need to email their subscribers?
Minimum once a week. I'd say at least twice a week. And that's probably being conservative. Most people, a lot of people that I follow from an email standpoint would tell you more. Mm-hmm. But once a month, it's almost the same as doing nothing.
Yeah, same here. Whatever. At that point, it's no longer. You'll have a couple of your devoted, loyal clients who will read it and about it. But then, the next question comes. Okay, well, I'm planning to send out a newsletter, say twice a week or even once a week. What do you talk about so that people actually want to read it? I mean, there are only so many classes that are offered or anything like studio news. What are some of the subjects that can be Interesting.
That's there's a lot. So Marie Forleo has the Copy Cure as a
Hmm.
course, which is really good at helping people figure out what they need to talk about. Um, and that's, I think sometimes as fitness business owners, I know at least I went through this, and I see other people do it, where you get too technical and you get rid. They're overly informative emails, but they're really boring,
Yeah.
and people don't want to read it. And so I find the ones that I read have got way more personality to them, or they're funny. So if it's funny, it's always going to resonate with me, and I'll open that regardless. But get some more personality into your email. And one of the tips that I got from her was read it out loud. And so if you fall asleep reading your own email, like, don't send it, like write it again. But put some personality into it. Don't be afraid to make it funny or whatever your personality is, but embed that in there so that they have some kind of an idea of what you're about, who the person's about on the other side of that. So I try to get more humor weaved into mine. I'm huge, majorly sarcastic, but I like to have a good time with everyone who's all the members of the gym, and so that comes out in my emails. But it didn't at first, and it took a while to get comfortable with that. But it's hard to sit down and to know what to write, and so you're having to weave a little bit of education in with some entertainment. Um, if you really want that to stick out. Otherwise, it's just another email in their inbox, and that gets old after a while.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I find too. Like, especially again, like for me, I work with a lot of Pilates studios, and a lot of them are very, very serious. Which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of I think, the side of business that's part of the business. There's a lot of rehabilitation, injury prevention, all those topics that will not really be like funny or
Right.
anything like that. Like they talk pelvic floor issues, menopause. It's like there are only so many ways you can talk about that kind of stuff. But these are their clients. This is the people who they serve. So for them, it's just finding something to stand out that doesn't sound too repetitive and too boring is seems to be always an issue.
Another resource they could look at for that, but Molly with Girls Gone Strong does
Mm-hmm.
a really good job with her brand. And there's a number of personalities that's fitness personalities that kind of like merge together with that, but they do some stuff around pelvic floor issues and things like that. But there's personality weaved into what they're trying to do with their message, and they if somebody's looking to a resource, they do a really good job with that. So that's one of the biggest things I'll do is so I'll have like an email swipe file. So when I get an email, if it makes me laugh or I like it, I grab it, throw it in there. So when like, all right, I've got to do my emails, whatever, and I've got that block, then I can go in there and I'll go to that file, and like that may set me down a path that I don't know, kind of like opens up my creativity.
Yeah. And you can
That
have some ideas here for how they portray, not necessarily, we're not talking about copying the same email, it's just kind of using the same maybe thought or bringing something to their attention that's kind of in the same line. I kind of do the same, like when I use Gmail, I will always put labels on particular emails that I receive from different businesses that I like, and just put a label on it, just to say like, oh, like again, funny idea or something like that, or a marketing funnel or something like that, which again, in like sense, like you're saying, when I have the roadblock or I need to come up with something, I can just look through those labels and find something that will help.
Yeah, that's just like a find your voice. And but for a lot of them, like you can like talking to your customers or your clients, like they're going to tell you what like like. But think about those conversations and what they tell you. That those are some of the things that you can weave in there. But don't be afraid to, I guess, let some of your personality into it. And that's where, um, I guess, just when if you're thinking of like with the email, is just pay attention to the emails that you like,
Mm-hmm.
and let that help you find your voice. But if you don't like reading all the serious emails that you get, like neither do your customers. Just and that's so don't send out the ones that you don't like to read.
Yeah, got it. All right, cool. Well, thank you, Mike, for sharing so much information with us. So if somebody wants to connect with you and get to know a little bit more about your consulting or maybe any of the other program software that you offer, how can they find you?
They can get digitallyfitbiz at Gmail, or the website is digitallyfit.biz.
Okay, cool. And I've seen like you have I believe like you have like newsletter lead magnet talking about retargeting checklist, correct?
Yes.
So that's going to be, I think, a valuable resource for somebody who's just kind of considering, okay, what is it? Like, I want to learn more about it, but I'm not ready to sign up. So go ahead and go to Mike's website. And I checked out his lead magnet, like that checklist. It's very informative. Really learned a lot from it. So go grab it, figure out what it's all about. If it's something that you're interested in implementing in your studio, for your business or not. And then, if you want to know more, you can always get in touch with Mike and see how he can help you grow your business.
Awesome. Always happy to help.
Well, thank you, Mike, so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. Awesome.